faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
All God asks of you is faithfulness. Headlines in USA Today, did you see it this morning? All the odds against us. Faithfulness is the word.
There's a place for you on the battle line. Engage in the fight for America's families. Visit AFA.net and then take your position. A message from the American Family Association. This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. The Senate confirmation hearing for Robert F. Kennedy Jr., President Trump's pick for HHS Secretary, is underway. In his opening statement, Kennedy talked about the state of American health care and the need to fix it.
The United States has worse health than any other developed nation, yet we spend more on health care, at least double, and in some cases triple, as other countries. Last year, we spent $4.8 trillion, not counting the indirect costs of missed work. That's almost a fifth of GDP. It's tantamount to a 20% tax on the entire economy. No wonder America has trouble competing with countries that pay a third of what we do for health and have better outcomes and a healthier workforce.
Meanwhile, David Spunt tells us President Trump's pick to lead the FBI, Kash Patel, will face his Senate confirmation hearing tomorrow.
That hearing is tomorrow. We expect fireworks. Now, Republicans, they believe that he's going to bring long-awaited reform to the FBI. Now, Patel is an attorney who once worked at the Justice Department as a terrorism prosecutor, later at the Defense Department as former chief of staff to the acting Defense Secretary Chris Miller under President Trump's first term. He also worked at the National Security Council, before that the House committee that investigated the 2016 Russia probe. He began his career as a public defender. And Republicans, they say, he'll bring a fresh perspective to an agency that has had trouble distancing itself from controversy really since the 2016 presidential campaign.
19 state attorneys general are urging Costco to ditch its DEI policies and base their policies on merit and not skin color or sexual preference. But so far, the giant has doubled down. Iowa is one of the states that sent the message to Costco. Here's Iowa Attorney General Brenna Byrd.
Well, we're calling on Costco to ditch DEI and to follow our Constitution, to follow our civil rights laws, and not pursue race-based or gender identity-based hiring practices. Those are illegal. And so we have a letter that went to Costco from 19 states, including the great state of Iowa. Costco needs to show us the proof that they are following the law, because they have public statements that cause us great concern. Many other big retailers have changed their DEI policies and are now following federal law, just like President Trump is doing with his executive orders rooting out DEI. And so they need to show us they're following the law. There are reports that there are executive bonuses tied to DEI metrics.
Immigrations and Customs Enforcement has been carrying out raids across the country to capture and deport violent, criminal, illegal aliens. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem has been on the streets of New York with officials conducting the raids.
The community is safer now. That's the reality of it. Everybody who has been concerned about walking their children to school or spending and doing business in these communities now know that New York City is safer because these dangerous criminals are gone and they're no longer living in their community.
National School Choice Week is going on now. Bronson Woodruff talked with one organization about the nationwide push.
Project 21 has had ties with school choice in the past. They were upset with the Obama administration for not embracing it. AFN spoke with Giovanni Patterson, a Project 21 ambassador and a Baltimore community activist. He spoke about School Choice Week and the awareness the week brings to the cause.
Really just kind of recognition of, the idea of school choice, which I think we need, and bringing awareness. I think our school systems now have gotten, too bloated and trying to fit all children into one pathway. And I think it's good that parents can see that there are other options outside of the prescribed school system.
He wants parents to recognize that choice exists and that choice can be good for their children.
School systems now rather would have, they don't really want parental involvement. They rather have parental conformity. And again, school choice, giving parents options and recognizing parents can provide the best options or know their children best.
Patterson said parents know their kids better than school systems claim they do. School Choice Week started this past Sunday and continues through this coming Saturday, February 1st. Schools, organizations, and parents around the country are holding thousands of local events for it. You can learn more on National School Choice Week's website. I'm Bronson Woodruff.
For American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh.
Hello, my name is Andy Miller, and I'm the president of Wesley Biblical Seminary based in Ridgeland, Mississippi. We are developing trusted leaders for faithful churches, and we do that based in the authority of Scripture and in the reality that Christians can be transformed. We do that also through bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees. We'd love for you to learn more about Wesley Biblical Seminary at wbs.edu, where we're developing trusted leaders for faithful churches.
Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Thanks for listening to AFR on this Wednesday, January the 29th, 2025. Again, as always, we appreciate you listening to AFR. So I am in studio with Ed Vitagliano. Good morning, Brother Ed.
Good morning, Tim.
Wesley Wildman.
Good morning.
And Fred Jackson.
Hey there, Tim.
All right, Brent Creeley's on the control board, as he usually is, and Steve Paisley Jordahl.
We've all got our drinks in here. I don't see. Where's your coffee? You got yours? Okay, you got water. I got Coke. You got coffee, and
I got Diet Coke.
Diet Coke.
Right.
All right.
Yeah,
So we're good to go. So we got our caffeine.
We're covered. Yeah, the caffeine. Got to have some caffeine in Trump's America.
Yes.
You ain't gonna be able.
Or you're not going to keep up.
You're not gonna be able to keep up. Sorry.
You would just pass that popcorn down here, though. It's a good day.
We got this 78-year-old bulldozer in the White House who doesn't sleep,
Putting us
evidently.
all to shame.
And it's good stuff.
Yeah.
Good stuff that's going on in our nation's capital.
You know what? I'm tired of winning.
You are there. You are there.
Already there. I'm already there. He said we'd get tired of winning. We'd win so much.
Well, listen. Hey, we wanted to welcome two of our new stations. We don't welcome stations, but listeners, people maybe tuning in the greater Birmingham, Alabama area, or Tuscaloosa. We've got two new radio stations. You have friends and family.
Yep.
In that area, you might let them know about our new American Family radio stations. Brent, where are the two stations on the dial?
Our new one in Birmingham is 97.7, and our new one in Tuscaloosa is 88.5.
Okay, so, and that Birmingham station, it covers most of Birmingham, right? And the south part.
Yes.
If I remember seeing the coverage map. And then the Tuscaloosa, we do have listeners already in Tuscaloosa, but this is going to get full coverage of the whole city and a good signal. Right. So we're very happy about that. That expands our coverage in the state of Alabama, as I said, to probably cover 70% of the population now with the stations that we do have there in Alabama. So 97.7 in Birmingham, and what was the other one in Tuscaloosa?
88.5.
88.5.
Let me just say this
Yes.
before we move on. That's just testimony of our listeners' financial contribution, and to contribute to the work we do allows us to continue to expand our territory ministry. So Thank you for those that are listening that's prayed for us. It's been, we get a lot of questions as I travel about, when are you going to put a station here, and and so and there's a time and a place for that. We obviously don't do it as much as we used to for different reasons, many of which we've covered, but we do have opportunities at time to expand our on the dial, our territory on the dial, and that's what we've done. So thank y'all for helping us do that.
Right, and if you just scanning the dial and you want to listen to some crazy right-wing Christians, hey, listen, you have come to the right place, okay? So you just stay with us, and you'll get
unapologetically.
You'll get all the entertainment. You don't need to be a snowflake now.
That's right.
Okay? You're going to melt quick listening to us. If you knew, you need to just keep on scanning.
Because we bring the heat.
I see what you did there, Ed.
That's right.
All right. So anyway, we're American Family Radio, and we are nationwide. We have about 170. We're about close to 170 radio stations.
That's right.
That we own and operate. All right, we're here Monday through Thursday with the news of the day on this particular show right here, live radio. Fred, what's the first story?
Well, bunches to talk about. Has ever since Donald Trump was sworn in as president about 9 days ago, everything involving around him leads the news. And today, the big news is that President Donald Trump's choice to run the Health and Human Services Agency, by the way, which has a $1.7 trillion budget. This is a big one.
Wow. I didn't realize it was that much.
Yeah. His choice is RFK Jr. Now, ever since, this is back several months ago during the election campaign, when RFK Jr., longtime Democrat, walked onto that stage with Donald Trump, it was guaranteed to be controversial. Mm-hmm. And it is.
True.
And leading up to this confirmation
and
here.
Trump usually shies away from controversy.
Oh, yeah.
So this is what makes it even more surprising.
Yes, it's shocking.
He walks into the fire. But it was promised to be controversial, and it is. And I think most of the major networks are covering it live today. Now, what I want to play for you is his opening statement, RFK Jr.'s opening statement. He has been accused of a lot of things, anti-vaccination, et cetera, et cetera. His cousin, Caroline, yesterday put a press release out, said he was a predator. So he's lost a lot of his own family. They think he's controversial. But here is his opening statement today, and then we'll play a little bit from the first questions from Democrats. Cut number 12 is the opening statement.
The United States has worse health than any other developed nation, yet we spend more on health care, at least double, and in some cases triple, as other countries. Last year, we spent $4.8 trillion, not counting the indirect costs of missed work. That's almost a fifth of GDP. It's tantamount to a 20% tax on the entire economy. No wonder America has trouble competing with countries that pay a third of what we do for health and have better outcomes and a healthier workforce.
All right, so that's a little bit of his opening statement.
Now, again, for those who haven't heard him talk much, he has a
speech impediment
caused by his vocal cords. Right?
Yes, correct.
Some sort of was there some sort of paralysis or something?
Yes.
It's a condition. It's some sort of syndrome.
Yes.
You get used to it if you listen. If you've heard him often, you just But if you haven't, if you're new to hearing him speak, that's what's going on there.
Yes.
And by the way, I do want to make a note of the fact that those numbers, I'm not sure those were per capita. He's talking about America's 320 million people or thereabouts, who knows now. And HHS budget does cover Medicare and Medicaid funding. So, but those are extraordinarily large numbers.
Yeah.
So.
And they have a say over, for instance, what our kids eat at our schools.
Right.
And one of the big points he's been making is we have increasing rates of cancer. We have increasing rates of diabetes. Yet, as he pointed out in that, we spend more money per capita than most countries in the world, if not all countries in the world. Well, one of the first to question RFK Jr. this morning was Oregon Democrat Senator Ron Wyden. And he did not have anything good to say about RFK Jr. Cut 13.
We're going to hold President Biden accountable to the taxpayers of Oklahoma here. And listen, his own ICE director admitted it last week.
I'm sorry.
They knew this.
That's the wrong cut.
Please say that was supportive. I like that.
Yeah, that's a totally different story. Anyway, the Democrats are obviously, they are questioning. They have taken remarks that Kennedy has made in the past about being anti-vaccine. He denies that. He says, I'm not anti-vaccine, but he has pointed out that he believes some children have become ill because of vaccination issues. One of the other, his biggest thing lately has been food additives.
Right.
That's where he's, And for instance, he says in Europe, a particular food may have 3 additives, where in the United States it has 17.
And a lot of our listeners have seen, if they're on social media,
yes,
these memes where they'll show the same food.
That's right.
Maybe a box of cereal, and then they list the ingredients underneath it, and it is pretty. The difference is pretty stark.
Yes.
All right, let me ask you this: are you finished with that?
He does have his
segment?
support. He does have his supporters, and we can play that after your point.
Okay, I don't know. I know a lot of people who are very interested in this topic. I'm talking about the
food additives,
and
vaccines,
the vaccines,
Yeah.
and we had a neighbor one time. This is 15 years ago. We had a neighbor. He moved away. He and his family moved away, but he had a son that developed autism. I mean, like almost suddenly, and this was a very intelligent guy. He was an engineer at an automotive company, and he said he studied everything, and he said he was convinced that it was his son getting multiple vaccines at the same time that led to this autistic condition of his son. And I didn't, I just listened to him.
Right.
Okay, because I don't know enough to comment on it, but I've met other people who say the same thing. Now, I don't know if there are any studies to.
I think that's part of what RFK Jr. wants to do.
Yes.
Okay.
He wants HHS. He wants there to be studies. It's kind of I've heard
I
him
don't think
on.
you realize a hot topic you just broke.
Yes.
Well, that's probably good.
You're
I'm
just
ignorant.
drinking.
I'm ignorant of it.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Now, if we want to move on to football, I'm ready. I'm ready. That does interest me.
I did notice your ignorance of how hot the topic was.
Okay. Well,
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say I did watch him. I've mentioned this on the show before. I watched and listened to it's like a 2-hour podcast.
Talking about RFK?
RFK Jr. on Joe Rogan, and I was spellbound by the discussion that was going on. And RFK Jr. He is an attorney. He has sued companies over pollution, environmental damage. He has sued pharmaceutical companies, and so he claims to know about as much about these topics as anyone in the country because he's read all these studies in preparation for these lawsuits going against the big lawyers for big business. So I think that all this needs to come out in the open, and if it's proven, I'm like you, Tim. I have no dog in this fight. So I don't care which side the science comes down, but if it's proven that these vaccines and the sheer number of vaccines that are included at one time or 2 or 3 shots for these kids, that it causes autism, we need to know that.
Well,
and if it doesn't, we need to know that too.
And one thing that I discovered, some of them, regardless of where the science will land in the event we do a study, most of them are unnecessary.
You're talking about the vaccine?
Yeah, vaccine. They're unnecessary.
I don't think you understand how
that
hot the topic is you just opened up.
I know, right? No, yeah, it's I'm glad that he's.
By the way, we're not giving medical
right
advice here. We're giving opinion based on our own research and studies that have been done extensive.
And let me just toss this in. Some of the suspicion towards the medical community in this country is self-inflicted on the part of the scientific community.
That's right.
Because of all the stuff that went on in COVID, and people are saying, wait a second.
And they can't be sued. That's another big thing.
Yeah, all this is if we're overly suspicious, guess what? It's on you guys.
Yeah, I'm
talking
they can't
about
be
the
sued.
medical
Do you understand
community.
what I mean? They can't be sued in the sense that if they get it wrong, they're not held responsible.
Well, that was the COVID vaccine.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, the COVID vaccine they came up.
Pfizer's and those
Operation Warp Speed was the pharmaceutical companies created this quote vaccine, but they wanted to be protected from lawsuits. And I understand, family or lawyers, I'm doing the same thing. I'm advocating for the same thing because we're being rushed, we the pharmaceutical companies, to produce a vaccine for COVID, which a lot of people were dying that first wave.
Now knows a shot. It's not a vaccine.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. This situation where these pharmaceutical companies can't be sued.
That's not
that
new
didn't
to-
start with
No,
COVID.
That's what I was getting.
Ronald Reagan signed a law, I think in 1984, protecting pharmaceutical companies who produce vaccines. All these vaccines, you cannot sue them over any of them.
Yep.
Because of.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
that goes back to. I think
Okay.
84.
All right, listen. This is a topic for another hour.
Oh, yeah.
With people who know far more than us. But this is a big point of conversation with RFK Jr. on Capitol Hill today. This whole vaccine subject and his views on that. He RFK Jr. I just wonder if he'll get confirmed, because that's questionable, isn't it not?
Yep. I mean, there are some
he needs 50 plus one.
Yeah,
Okay.
there are some Republicans who are going to vote against him because of statements he's made about abortion in the past.
Right. Conservative Republicans.
Conservative
Wow,
Republicans.
they've already said that?
Yes.
Well, then he's not going to pass. How
well-
many?
Well, but
he
there
can't
are
lose but 3.
But apparently there are some Democrats
Democrats,
who are going to vote for him
Right.
because they agree with him perhaps on statements he's made about abortion, but also they don't like big pharma.
Yeah.
Right.
There are Democrats. So it's going to be very interesting.
Very interesting.
It's not going to fall along
Do you have
party
any more
lines.
cuts from him? Do you want to play or not?
Well, I think we have the cut now from the Democrat senator from Oregon, Ron Wyden, who questioned RFK kind of early on in the hearing this morning.
The receipts show that Mr. Kennedy has embraced conspiracy theories, quacks, charlatans, especially when it comes to the safety and efficacy of vaccines. He has made it his life's work to sow doubt and discourage parents from getting their kids life-saving vaccines. It has been lucrative for him and put him on the verge of immense power.
So basically, that senator is saying Kennedy has been making money by making controversial statements. It has been pointed out. Kennedy himself has said all his kids have been vaccinated.
Yeah.
But he has concerns about some vaccinations and the danger they perhaps cause some kids.
I can do a mic drop and I'll step out of this conversation. You ready for
Well,
this?
you're going to do a mic drop, and then you can't
Back
step
out.
out and leave it on us to clean it up.
Right.
At the end of the day, just don't force people to take it. Whatever medicine you want to create, whatever shot you want to create, whatever vaccine you want to create, I draw a line on forcing people to do it, or else you lose your job, or else you can't go to school, or else you can't work in the government. That's the biggest issue before we even get into whether they work or not, or what are the side effects, what's the pros and cons of taking medicine or vaccine. The biggest problem I have is forcing people to do it, or the military, you lose your job.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest issue I have personally.
Well, I'm watching too that again we have the 4 different streams. Everyone's covering these confirmation hearings with RFK Jr. You know, the Secretary of Health and Human Services. It's not just about vaccines. It's Medicare and Medicaid. And I saw one little thing across the bottom, crawler or whatever, talking about questioning him about, you know, is he going to cut staff? Is he going to cut Medicare, Medicaid? So there's so much that he's going to have to explain. And the fact that he is controversial is going to make the possibility of him being confirmed, I don't know, a coin toss.
Is he going to be confirmed or not, Fred? Do you know?
If there is one that may be in danger of not being confirmed, I would put him at the top of the list.
Well, that's interesting because, you know, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, we had about 3 other people that were much higher on the list of potentially not being confirmed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he should have. Now, there's a few other people like Pete Hesek. Most of that was, when I say most of that, there was different reasons why he was in question. But for RFK, I don't remember it being anything other than just his views, not necessarily his personal life or not being qualified. This is an ideology.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you this question. I'm just going to throw this out here and then we can move on. But I'm just curious, If RFK Jr. were being nominated by Kamala Harris to be director of HHS, I don't think she would have, and I thank the Lord she's not president. Would that have mattered? Would we be sitting here going, we can't confirm this guy. Look at his views on abortion.
No,
you think Republicans would have said no?
I think the Republicans who are concerned about his abortion views would have opposed him in the scenario you're pointing out.
Right, but
I don't know what the Democrats would be doing, though.
What I'm saying is I think you have some Republicans who would support him because Trump nominated him, who would have opposed him had a Democrat nominated him.
That's probably true no matter who we're talking about.
And they would have been using the same arguments against him that some of the Democrats are now. Well, listen, we'll see what happens with RFK Jr. He is President Trump's choice. They've spent a lot of time together. President Trump knows his views. And he knows they're somewhat controversial. But with respect to the abortion question, I have heard him comment, that is RFK Jr., that he's what he would define himself as pro-choice, although he says every abortion is a tragedy.
Yes.
Basically. Mm-hmm. So he sounds conflicted as probably a Catholic.
But did he not, I'm sorry for interrupting you, but this is important. Did he not also say that there's a certain limit, though? He didn't. I don't believe he agrees on abortion up to 9 months.
I don't know.
I don't know. You may research that. But the point is, the bottom line point is, his views on that are not going to influence his job performance as
Secretary of
Health and Human Services.
Let me just toss this other thing in too. If he's not confirmed, I think President Trump is loyal enough that he will make him some sort of czar.
Yeah.
That doesn't need confirmation.
Yes.
He'll be the vaccine czar or, medical testing czar or something. He's going to have a part to play, I think, in a Trump administration, whether he gets this spot or not. That would be my guess.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see what happens there. When might the vote be? In the next week or so? Or who knows?
He goes before 2 separate Senate hearings. It's all part of the umbrella over Health and Human Services. So this may take several days to get out of committee.
Yeah.
And then he has to go to the full Senate.
And he has to get a vote, a favorable vote in committee.
Yes.
In both committees, right?
That's right.
And before it goes to the full
So
Senate.
big question mark to answer your question.
I just know as a baby boomer, we all remember in 5th, 4th, 3rd grade, whenever it was, lining up in the hall and going into the library and getting our shots.
Yes.
Don't we?
Yeah, but it wasn't
Canadians
as many,
and Americans.
It wasn't as many as they give now.
No, a shot.
Yeah.
It was
We
a
did
shot.
polio.
Yeah.
Polio was one.
But the shot we got at school
whooping cough, and there's all kinds of handful of things that.
Well, I didn't get all those. Well, maybe I did, but I didn't get them. I'm talking about the one you got at school.
Yeah.
Smallpox? What was that? The one that made a scar on your arm?
That was polio, I think.
I'm
the shots.
I'm 66, Tim.
Shots have messed up your memory.
You're asking. You're asking me to go way back. I remember Frosted Flakes were my favorite cereal. But
all right. Well, I just know we went into the library and
put
that thing that looked like a staple gun.
Yeah.
Up against your arm and boom.
Yeah.
Hit you and it made a indention and a mark that lasted.
There's one that we got. It wasn't a vaccination. It was put in a sugar cube, and we took it for something. But I remember the military, like every second day you were getting a shot.
I don't remember the sugar cube.
Yeah, that's the way it was delivered for us. I may have been
maybe ivermectin or something like
that. It could be.
Horses.
But in the military, you get shots for everything.
Yeah.
I mean, they just line you up.
Well, you sign your life away when you. I've forgotten what. It seemed like it was smallpox.
Well, I mean, was there typhus? There's all kinds. Yellow fever. I don't remember.
Yeah. Maybe it was just where I lived. All right, we're going to take a short time out right here. We'll be back with more of today's issues on the American Family Radio Network.
You wait to the scientific know-how we drop on you in the next segment.
You just need to absorb all that we just dished out right there. On vaccines and science and memory lapses and all that stuff. We'll be back in a minute. Stay with us.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildman.
Proverbs 16:20. He who gives heed to the word will prosper, and happy is he who trusts in the Lord. Interesting verse of scripture, isn't it? Some time ago, I read in the papers an account of a man in Phoenix, Arizona, who had rented an apartment but couldn't move into it because he'd lost it. Actually, he couldn't find it. It seems that Charles Rowland had sold his photo finishing business in Appleton, Wisconsin, and moved to Phoenix. Upon his arrival in Phoenix, Rowland checked into a hotel, and that same day he found an apartment and paid 1 month's rent in advance. However, he drove away without noting the address. Well, after 14 hours of driving around the city to locate the apartment, he notified a local paper of his plight. The fellow who had rented the apartment to Rowland read the article and called him at the hotel. It seems that the apartment was just 2 blocks, a couple of minutes, away from the hotel. Then there's the case of Dr. Ellis Schenken of Toronto. Dr. Schenken was punched in the eye, and as a result, he lost one of his contact lenses. Dr. Schenken, unable to find the lens, got fitted for another soon thereafter, but the eye in which Dr. Schenken got punched kept discharging, and his new lens kept popping out. Well, it should have. You see, the lens which Dr. Schenken searched for but couldn't find had been pushed into his eyelid, where it remained unnoticed. While a student in school, I worked in a grocery store to help defray my expenses. As I was stocking the shelf one day, a gentleman kept walking up and down the aisle looking for some product. Finally, he stopped in the section where the product should be. And after looking for quite a while for the product, he asked me if I knew where the product could be found. Reaching to the spot where he'd been looking for several minutes, I picked up the product and gave it to him. His comment? If it had been a snake, it would have bitten me. It wasn't long after that till I began a search early one morning for my glasses. After searching for several minutes about the house and failing to find them, I began to accuse one of the children or my wife of misplacing them. Seeing I was about to lose what little temper I had, Linda started searching with me. She came into the room where I was searching and started to speak, only to have a wide grin come across her face. "Go look in a mirror," she said. I took the hint and suddenly realized that I was wearing the glasses I had so desperately been hunting. You know, isn't it rather funny sometimes how we can search high and low for something and then end up finding it in a place where it should have been so simple to find? These 4 stories could be multiplied by countless individuals who have searched for something only to find it in a place so close by. Now, there's a truth here that could be applied to countless realms. But for the sake of simplicity, let's try just one. Happiness. It's right where you are, if you can find it.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildman, a production of the American Family Association.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tim Wildman, president of American Family Association and American Family Radio. Hey, just returned from the presidential inauguration of President Trump and Vice President Vance, and let me tell you something, folks. There's an excitement in the air among millions and millions and millions of Americans who are ready for some common sense changes to come to our country. Guess what? We're going to Washington, D.C. again for our Spiritual Heritage Tour in June and September. We're over halfway full. If you want to go with us to see our nation's capital from a distinctively Christian heritage viewpoint, then you need to contact us. You need to go to wildmangroup.com, WILDMON group.com. We're also going to Colonial Williamsburg, Jamestown, and Yorktown. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to Boston in October. For information on any of these tours, go to wildmangroup.com, WILDMON group.com.
Search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there is any offensive way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. Psalm 139, 23, and 24.
American Family Radio. This is today's issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of today's issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of today's issues.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the radio program Today's Issues on American Family Radio. I'm Tim with Ed and Wesley and Fred. As we speak, RFK Jr. is having his confirmation hearings go on in Washington, D.C. regarding his role as Health and Human Services, Secretary of Health and Human Services, correct? Isn't that the proper title?
Correct.
He's been nominated by President Trump for that position, but he has to be confirmed by the Senate, and we don't know how that vote's going to go. I don't know if anybody knows at this point exactly how that vote's going to go. It will be close, and so we'll see what's happening. That's an enormous federal agency with immense power. So we need somebody good, competent, and who has the best interest of the American people at heart, okay?
Right.
And so we will see and President Trump is confident in RFK Jr. So we were talking about the shots that baby boomers would remember getting as children. I got mine at school. Well, you got vaccine shots at the doctor's office, too. But I'm talking about the health department, what we call the health department. But you got a handful.
Yeah, so I looked them up.
Go ahead.
I looked them up. So the smallpox vaccine was discontinued in 1972. Some people might have gotten that. That was after smallpox was declared eradicated. There was MMR, which was measles, mumps, and rubella. And then there was DTP.
DTaP was what
that vaccine was diphtheria, tetanus, pertussis.
That's still out there?
I think those last two I mentioned are probably a part of a larger number of vaccines that children get now.
Right.
Because there's scores of things that they get vaccines for.
In order Wesley to go to school. Wesley would know, and your Tony would know they have small children.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What I learned is that while they may be getting one shot at a time, there's multiple vaccines in that shot. So it's a little deceptive the way they say, well, it's only one shot. Yeah, but there's like 4 vaccines per one shot. In some cases, 6 or 7.
Yeah, so I'm looking.
It's very interesting. It's one of these. It's one of these topics and issues that unless you've got children, it's out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
But I know the more that we learned about it, the more we looked into it, the less we were. With each kid, we were less interested in just going along with what the doctor quote recommended. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
For different reasons.
So for the state of Mississippi, for example, they immunize kids against hepatitis B. There's the DTP plus whooping cough. There is influenza, childhood pneumonia, the measles, mumps, rubella, MMR, meningitis, chickenpox. Some states have gotten into trouble, like Texas, I don't know, half a dozen, 6 or 7 years ago, they got in trouble because they wanted to immunize kids prior to going into puberty for the human papillomavirus, HPV, because it's sexually transmitted. And so COVID-19, all these, your state will probably differ on what they want to give.
Then you got the flu.
Flu, yeah.
Yeah. So
of course,
by the time you get through with all these vaccines,
there's people taking less of the flu vaccine because it's not a vaccine; it's a shot.
Take it. Some people do. I don't take it.
Yeah.
But I don't. It can't harm you. I don't think.
No, it can. It actually can. Some people get the flu shot, and then get flu, and then as a result of getting,
you know how deep of water you're getting.
Oh yeah,
right
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
We probably just need to move on.
You just set loose the Kraken.
Yeah, the Kraken.
Wesley's the Kraken.
Listen, everybody.
I don't believe in
everybody do your own. Everybody do your own research
preemptively.
And decide on your.
Yeah, we are not dispensing medical information here.
No, we're giving opinion based on our own research.
Yes.
Russian roulette
advice. Well, you have Russian rubella too, Wesley.
Yeah, there's a vaccine for it.
There's a vaccine for it. But there is the list of vaccines is just
it's getting enormous.
And they're Some of them,
Be careful.
Some of them may be vaccines, but
you're a doctor.
Are
you a doctor?
No, I call it trial and error.
I'd like to know if there's a vaccine for racism. How do we cure racism? Because we have
funny
somebody
you should ask.
Yes. I think we should ask.
We are going to visit now with the author of the new book, How to Stop Racism in America, by Neil Mammen. Neil's our longtime friend here and has been on with us before about various and sundry topics. And he has a new book out called How to Stop Racism in America, a Real Solution for African American Plight. And he joins us now. Good morning, Neil.
Hey, great to be with you guys. I wish I could be there in person.
So what was the last vaccine you had, Neil?
I think it was smallpox, where they scar you up.
Okay, how old are you?
That was it. Pardon?
How old are you?
I'll be 63 this year in a few months.
I'll be 62 I'll be 62 in March, and that's what I'm talking about. You and I, well, you had the smallpox, and I did too. Then that's
and
what
I had mine in Sudan. Actually, they gave it to me when I was.
I did
Sudan.
too. Yeah, I was there. I was touring with a band.
That's why you were my classmate.
Yeah, it was
a great band.
It was a boys band at the time, and we were touring Africa, and that's where I got my shot there in the Sudan. So Neil, tell us your book, How to Stop Racism in America. Why are you writing on this topic here? What's this about?
Well, being a real African American, actually, that's the name that Kevin McGarry gave me. We started Every Black Life Matters in 2020 after BLM was rampaging through the streets, and we realized that the Black community needed another voice. Now, I wasn't planning on joining it, but I tried to talk Kevin McGarry into it. He did start it, but he said he's not going to do it without me. I told him, hey, Kevin, I don't know if you've looked, but I'm not Black. He said, yes, that's true. You're not Black, but you are African American. In fact, I'm the only African American on the team right now. We have Africans and we have Americans, but I guess I'm the only African American right now on the team. But we got involved with that basically because we thought that if you think about it, BLM is running out there and all these other groups are running around with the whole thing about DEI and all that, all the new Marxist philosophies is all because they're saying that Americans are racist. And it's because Americans are racist that Blacks have Black plight. And so through the course of this, I would get in all these conversations with people. I'd say, well, I got to do some research on it. And so I spent about 3 years doing the research, and the book resulted out of that.
Oh, so what'd your research show you?
Well, it's very interesting because if you go back to the 1930s, now remember the 1930s, we had real systemic racism, lynching, segregation. You were denied basic rights. You couldn't use the same fountain or the same bathrooms. You couldn't sit in the same places as whites. So, but despite all those horrible, real racist acts, Black Americans were thriving in amazing ways. You see, nearly 80% of Black children were born into two-parent households, and that was higher than the white population. The Black marriage rate was higher than that of the whites. The literacy rates in the Black community, again, this is 1930s, the literacy rate was 70% thanks to homeschooling and schools run by churches and communities and Black-owned universities and things like that. Black neighborhoods were thriving hubs of activity. You remember Tulsa's Black Wall Street. I mean, it turns out that six of the airplanes owned in the airport were owned by Black people. There were Black millionaires. And the reason this was working was because Black men would go to a white contractor who maybe was a racist and say, hey, I'll work for half the price or 3/4 the price that a white man would work for. And so they had high employment rates. Their employment rates were through the roof. They were taking that money back to the community. The community was really well knit. Crime was low. In fact, if you walk down the street in a Black neighborhood, you would see fathers playing with their kids, fathers praying with their kids, sitting for dinner together, leading their families, walking around the neighborhood together. And it was a vibrant Black community. And that was what we had in the 1930s.
Yeah, but the issues you mentioned earlier. So what's your point about that? What are you saying? We need to go back to the 30s?
Yeah, well, yeah, in a sense, yes. Not for the racism, but let's look at what caused it to fall apart. Two major things destroy that progress. First of all was the racists in the KKK couldn't stand the fact that the black men were taking jobs from white men by working for less. So they tried a bunch of different things like threatening white owners, but that didn't work. So they said, we got to get the federal government involved. And so they mandated a minimum wage. Yes, the minimum wage was started by racists to stop black people from taking white jobs. And even today, the minimum wage laws hurt young black Americans by pricing them out of jobs. And we'll see why. So, and then LBJ's Great Society programs in the 1960s was really the capstone that destroyed the black family. He sent almost somewhere between 20,000 to 100,000 social workers. My research has shown that I can count 20,000, but I've heard anecdotal evidence that there could have been up to 100,000 social workers into the black communities with one mission: get black families to accept government money. But there was a condition with this: only if the father was out of the home. And I've talked to women about this. I interviewed a number of women about this who are about my age, and they remember social workers telling their mother to kick their fathers out of their house. In fact, one lady said this social worker would argue for hours with my mom, saying, kick that bum out, I can get you twice as much money per child. And then another one said that the social worker would call their home and say, hey, I'm coming over in about an hour. Make sure you've hidden his jacket and his shoes and his keys so I can say that there's no man in the house. Now, before this program, as I said, 80% of black kids grew up with their fathers. By 1980, it was 55% only had fathers. And today, 73% of black kids are raised in fatherless homes, 73%. So what happens with that? When you get fatherlessness, we all know it leads to sex, more sex amongst the young kids as the women look for approval, more crime, gangs, and drug abuse. So black and black violence skyrocketed. Today, 53% of murderers in the United States are black. And this crime spilled into the schools, and the literacy rates plummeted. Today, only 17%. Now remember, in 1930, the height of racism, 70% was literate. Today, only 17% are proficient in reading. Now, you add that to the minimum wage laws, and you got kids who can't read, can't write, can't do math, and they're being told that you've got to pay them $25 an hour or $20 an hour. Who's going to hire them with a minimum wage of $15 to $20? Nobody. But none of this happened because of racism of the general public. They were bad government policies that devastate the black family.
Talking to Neil Mammen, the author of the new book, How to Stop Racism in America. How do people get a copy of your book here?
Well, Amazon, Neil Mammen, Mammen, or just look up How to Stop Racism. You can go to everyblm.org or .com. Everyblm.com will also take you there.
Well, so the situation that happened in the 60s with Lyndon Johnson, the president, and the Great Society, that is this massive influx of federal money going for programs in the name of ending poverty, the war on poverty, right. In the name of that. That was, you can track back and look, that was the beginning of the demise of the black family on a broad general scale. Obviously, there are a lot of black families. Okay.
And in the book, I have graphs showing when the law was passed and how crime rose and fatherlessness rose and literacy declined.
Because you did get financially rewarded, and this would be true of any race. I mean, this is just human nature. If you incentivize a behavior, you're going to get more of it. And the federal government decided to give more money to women if they had babies out of wedlock than being married. So if you were married, basically you were punished. And if you had babies out of wedlock, then you got more money from the federal government. Now that supposedly was, and of course we see where that leads, where that ends up with. But let
me give you.
Go ahead.
Let me give you a comparison. And in the book, I compare 3 to 4 other ethnicities. So one of the two comparisons, like recently, President Trump stopped all affirmative action, and everybody's like, "Oh, he's a racist." I just released an article that talks about it, and in the article I mentioned, look, let's see if affirmative action. Yeah, it was started for a good reason. It was supposed to make sure that a good black person could compete against a good white person. But what resulted in was a bad black person was now able to take, when I say bad, I mean an uneducated or unproficient black person could take the job of an educated and a proficient white person. And that's not what was supposed to have happened. And so I said, well, let's look at other groups. And in the book, I talk about this. Let's look at another group of people who were oppressed. Let's look at the Japanese or the Chinese. The Chinese came here as indentured laborers. They were working on the railways. They were treated badly. They were discriminated against. Japanese were thrown in internment camps, all these things. But guess what they didn't have? Neither of them had affirmative action. In fact, if you're Asian, today, if you're Asian, you can't get into Berkeley, UC Berkeley in many schools because you're an Asian. Yet the blacks had affirmative action. Let's look at where they are now. If you look at what the Chinese and the Japanese are, they're in the highest percentile of income earners versus the blacks are in the lowest percentile of income earners. Why is that? Because the Japanese and the Chinese did not have affirmative action. So is affirmative action helping? No, it's not helping.
Yeah.
So this actually goes into how we can fix the problem.
All right, we have you back on again to get more into that, but we got to move on right now. How to Stop Racism in America by Neil Mammen, Mammen, and also you work with Kevin McGarry, you're co-founder of Every Black Lives Matters. I know you've been very involved in that. So what's the website for that?
That's everyblm.com. Everyblm.com.
Yeah. And the book is titled How to Stop Racism in America. All right, Neil, we'll have you back on to delve more into this later. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Appreciate it.
It's Neil Mammen. Very interesting.
Yeah, it's a huge battle and fight, ideological battle that's going on over the root causes of poverty in America or anywhere, but especially here in America. And this is a clear factor, the breakdown of the black family, probably because, at least to a large extent, because of welfare and rewarding single parenthood. And it has a host of bad consequences for the children.
Even though it's done in the name of
it's
helping.
Yeah.
The good intentions sometimes can
unintended
consequences. Have unintended consequences. All right, you're listening to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Tim, Ed, Wesley, and Fred. Abraham Hamilton III, General Counsel of AFA and host of the Hamilton Corner, weekday afternoons, 5 to 6 o'clock here on American Family Radio. Joins us now. Abe is a constitutional attorney. Good morning, Abe.
Good morning.
All right, so Fred, you wanted to Abe, let me just ask you, we got 5 or 6 minutes here, so I'll ask this one question, then Abe can take up the next 7 minutes with an answer. Abe, what is your general response? Well, we all know it's true, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing.
Right.
I'll just say,
after you ask this question, I'm gonna go to Hardee's and get a biscuit. I'll be back.
Right. All right, Abe. President Trump, what's your reaction to his dizzying issuing of executive orders and what he's doing to just dismantle the political left in this country?
Well, first, let me say this. I do not think executive orders are a sustainable mechanism for executive branch function.
Okay.
However, when you are aiding the country in recovering from the Biden administration, there is much that has to be done via executive order. And I have to tell you, pinch me, am I dreaming? President Trump has done within the first week or so things that I didn't necessarily see coming ever. I mean, the Biden administration promoted transgenderism, mutilations of children. President Trump banned it within the first week. The Biden administration literally persecuted pro-life protesters who would pray outside of murder mills. President Trump pardoned them all in the first week. The Biden administration terminated military service members who refused to inject themselves with mRNA jabs. President Trump ordered their reinstatement within the first week. I mean, this is amazing. But the Biden administration harbored illegal criminal aliens in our country. President Trump is deporting them immediately. These things are showing what is available when you have a convicted executive who is willing to put himself out there in campaign season and immediately turn to fulfill what he's promised the American people. This has been an amazing first week or so of the Trump administration.
Hey, Fred here. If you're a federal employee, you got an email from the Trump administration last night. And the email would not be encouraging for those who have worked for the federal government for a long time. This email, 4 points. They're going to be reviewing everybody's performance. If you've been working from home, most of these workers are going to be ordered back to work. And also, it says the memo, the federal workforce should be comprised of employees who are reliable, loyal, trustworthy, and who strive for excellence in their daily work. And if you don't like it and you want to volunteer yourself to leave the employee, you get 8 months of severance pay and have a nice day. I expect a lot of these workers are unionized. There's going to be a big fight over this.
Sure, but what he's announced through this memo is correct. I mean, what in the memo, it could be debated by anyone who is an objective American who wants to see our tax dollars utilized at the maximum efficacy. I mean, there's a reason why the most wealthy populace in our country, zip code wise, has transitioned away from the private sector in America to the zip code surrounding Washington, D.C. You know, he campaigned on getting efficiency back in government with the Doge commitment from Elon Musk, and he's following through on that promise. And I understand there's some career Washington staffers that may not like it, but as an American taxpayer, President Trump is doing what I and many other Americans elected him to do.
I don't know who's writing President Trump's executive orders, but I want to hire that guy or that gal or both. I mean, because I don't read them all. I know
he has 200 of them.
Yeah, I plan on it, though. I plan on it. When I go on vacation, I'm going to dig into reading some more EOs here. But I did read the one having to do with banning the transitioning of minors.
Yes.
The quote sexually transit. In other words, federal government is not going to. What did that have to do with paying for transition?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So no tax dollars. No federal tax dollars.
To it.
Okay.
No tax. Here's another rule. I'm sorry, Tim. You were trying to
go
make
ahead.
a point.
Well, I'm just going like, man, this is. I read that whole thing.
What we talked about in the show prep this meeting, this morning in our meeting was that there was no holes in it. It explained everything
in the executive order. Now I agree with Abe. I'm for legislation over executive orders. But what President Trump is doing with executive orders is basically just in response to what Biden did with executive orders. He's just overturning.
Absolutely right.
So
absolutely right, and he's doing two things because something that has not happened in American history. President Trump's approval rating now is higher than it ever was in his first term.
Yeah.
That has never happened in American history where you have a second-term president who has an approval rating at any point in his second term that's higher than his first term. Secondarily, his fulfillment of his campaign promises is communicating to other elected officials and developing the political will amongst the American populace to say, we like what he's doing, and so it's setting the stage for legislation to be able to follow these executive orders to make what's been initiated via executive action to be made permanent through congressional action, because the Congress members are witnessing, wait a minute, the people are loving what he's doing.
Yeah, I know. I'm a little bit surprised, maybe I shouldn't be, that he has indeed cracked down on the illegal immigrants and the crime element there, shut down the border. I mean, with the swiftness that he has done. So the coming over our southern border has stopped now, and the United States federal government are rounding up the criminals and the bad people, and they're sending them back, repatriating them to their own country. And that's taking place at breakneck speed. So kudos.
And we need to get to some Caroline Leavitt comments.
We can do that after the break.
On this
Thank you, Abe. Appreciate it.
All righty. Thank you, guys.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
Dr. Travis was a man that was full of life.
Bert Harper of Exploring the Word.
He loved the Word of God, and it came across in the classroom. Dr. Travis put in my heart a desire to know God through His Word. And that's what we're trying to do on Exploring the Word.
Exploring the Word, weekday afternoons at 3 Central on American Family Radio. This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. Nominated to lead the Health and Human Services Department, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. appears before senators for his confirmation hearing.
Supporters of Robert Kennedy Jr. cheer on President Trump's nominee to lead the Department of Health and Human Services. Kennedy says he wants to make America healthy again.
We can't be a strong nation when our people are so sick. A healthy person has 1,000 dreams. A sick person has only one.
Kennedy has come under scrutiny by critics who claim he's anti-vaccine. Kennedy telling the Senate Finance Committee he is not anti-vaccine, that all of his kids are vaccinated, and that vaccines play a critical role in health care. On Capitol Hill, Ryan Schmelz, Fox News.
DHS Secretary Kristi Noem joining in on ICE raids in New York City. Alexis McAdams has more.
Investigators telling Fox News they were targeting and arresting migrant criminals, including one man who they say is a Tren Aragua gang member who was hiding out over in the Bronx. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem telling Fox that that man was arrested after he was trying to buy grenades.
He had just been a part of a gun weapons exchange and was trying to buy grenades. Why would anybody in this country need to buy a grenade and go out and perpetuate violence?
The Venezuelan migrant identified by DHS as Anderson Zambrano Pacheco. Pacheco arrested on a slew of charges. Like what? Well, kidnapping, assault, and burglary, to name a few.
An immigration reform organization says birth tourism is another activity that can be stopped if President Trump's effort to end birthright citizenship is successful. More from Chad Groening.
A federal judge in California recently sentenced a woman to 41 months in prison for helping pregnant Chinese women travel to the United States to deliver babies who automatically became U.S. citizens. Phoebe Dong and her now separated husband Michael Yu were convicted in September of conspiracy and money laundering through their company USA Happy Baby. Federal prosecutors say the couple helped more than 100 pregnant Chinese women travel to the United States. Prosecutors also say that for tens of thousands of dollars each, the defendant helped her numerous customers deceive U.S. authorities and buy U.S. citizenship for their children. Ira Melman is media director for the Federation for American Immigration Reform. He says this is another example of why birthright citizenship must end.
Here you have both people here in the United States who are profiting from this, and you have the birth tourists themselves who are misrepresenting their reasons for being allowed to enter the United States. That actually is a crime, something that needs to stop.
And Melman says birth tourism is nothing new.
No, it's nothing new at all. It's not just from China. It's from many, many different parts of the world. And it tends to be the more affluent in those countries. They're the ones who can afford to pay these people who facilitate this. So this is not a case of destitute people trying to come here. This is affluent people in most cases trying to take advantage of a flaw in our system.
Melman hopes that the Supreme Court will ultimately uphold President Trump's executive order banning birthright citizenship. I'm Chad Groening.
An investigation is underway into how an F-35 fighter jet crashed in Alaska Tuesday. Jeff Manasso has more.
An F-35 assigned to the 354th Fighter Wing crashed near Eielson Air Force Base during a training exercise after a single pilot declared an in-flight emergency before ejecting. That pilot currently in stable condition.
Because it was, the impact did occur near the airfield, it was during the landing phase and had been airborne for a period of time. Investigating what they determined to be an in-flight malfunction.
U.S. Air Force Colonel Paul Townsend says a safety investigation is underway and an accident investigation board has convened. Jeff Manasso, Fox News.
Tax season is underway, and the IRS expects 140 million people to file returns by April 15th. If you file your tax return electronically, the IRS says it should take 21 days or fewer to receive your refund. If you choose to receive your refund with direct deposit, it should take even less time. If you file a paper return, the refund could take 4 weeks or more. More news online at afn.net and on the AFN mobile app. I'm Rusty P.
Preborn would like to thank AFR listeners for your prayer and financial support. During our special Preborn campaign, as a result of your donations, 4,500 babies will be saved and their mothers will hear the gospel. Just $28 pays for a free ultrasound, and when an abortion-minded mother sees her baby, she's likely to choose life. Learn more at preborn.com. Please continue to pray for Preborn and give as you're able. On behalf of unborn babies and their mothers, again, thank you.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildman, president of the American Family Association.
Hey, thanks for listening to American Family Radio. I'm Tim Wildman with Ed Vitagliano, Wesley Wildman, and now Steve Paisley Jordahl joins us as he does this time every day. Good morning, Brother Steve.
Good morning, Brother Tim.
So, what do you got there, Steve?
Well, we've been talking a lot about the ICE raids that are going in, and somebody just happened to have a microphone and caught this one. I thought it was informative. Let's listen to cut 14.
Yeah, hello?
This is an officer with ICE doing a routine check.
Well, I'm an American citizen.
Well, we have questions that'll determine that answer.
Okay.
How many points are scored in a football game?
6.
We want to make America
great again.
Who's the best female artist?
Taylor Swift.
All right, last question. Can you say Walmart? Sir, can you say...
Yes, I know. Walmart.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that guy didn't end well for him.
What am I missing here? Help me out, Ed.
You're missing the racist piece of sound that Steve just played.
Walmart?
Well, he could.
The Mexicans say Walmart or something?
I don't know, but that was funny.
They can't.
Why was it funny, Ed?
Well, because they're having a hard time pronouncing it.
That funny?
Because of the Mexican accent.
So you're making fun of Mexicans?
I'm not.
This was a Mexican that actually posted this, so I think.
Is
that right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Okay.
That's acceptable. Well, none of us get all the jokes. I didn't get that one.
Oh, you didn't?
No, I didn't get that one. But that's okay. Steve got it, and he brought it forth.
At least one of y'all got it. So
I get the mispronunciation from the Mexican man about Walmart, but I didn't see what's funny about it.
Well, because he was trying to answer the questions in a way that wouldn't
get him in trouble.
Wouldn't get him in trouble, but he couldn't pronounce Walmart in English
Walmart
accent.
is really not that hard to pronounce.
No, that's true.
So,
you're missing the points, Tim, but it's
but
humor.
you get it. You get the point, don't you?
I got it.
Yeah. All right, next, whatever it is we're going to do here.
All right, we saw the first appearance of the White House spokesperson, the press secretary, Carolyn Leavitt.
And she's been asked to join the Avengers because she's a Marvel superhero.
Boy,
now.
is she.
That's funny.
She's like 27, I think.
She's 27.
And she came out. Now, you will recall we often had clips of Karine Jean-Pierre from the last administration who came out with her binder. It was about
Let me be clear.
Thick as a family Bible. I mean, it was huge.
She wants to be clear.
She wants to be clear.
Yeah.
And then there was Circle Around Jen Psaki before that.
Yeah, Circle Back.
Circle Back. And so every time that they would ask her a question, KJP would open the book and just literally read whatever it was that she was supposed to read. Ms. Leavitt did not come out with any binder at all, just a couple pieces of paper. She knew
came out with a can.
Right. She knew every reporter's name and called them by name in the whole room.
I got that one, too.
You got that one? Okay.
Yeah. And she was calling on reporters in the back row, and she knew them by name. And she just answered question after question after question.
When I was watching her, I was curious to how she practiced, for lack of a better word, or prepped, whatever, because there was nothing about it that said, okay, well, we're going to work on that next time.
Right?
She had a home run to start.
She wasn't hiding from answering questions, which was our criticism and probably everybody else's of Karine Jean-Pierre.
Right.
I will refer you to the Defense Department for the answer, which I'm supposed to provide.
Right. That's what she did every day.
Yeah.
Of course, with Karine Jean-Pierre, she had nothing to work with, hardly, except for dishonesty.
Yeah.
And lies.
Talking about the Biden administration.
And misdirection, huh? Yeah, with the Biden administration. I mean, she was supposed to get up there and say every day that
inflation's going down.
Cognitively speaking, he's doing great. Yeah. I can't even keep up with him. And everybody in the room knows, no, that's not true. You know it, and we know it. But please continue with your next lie.
Right. So in contrast to that,
what
do we got?
We got a 27-year-old.
Yep.
Who's I'm double her age, and she has made her presence known immediately, right?
Absolutely, she did. I want to play you a couple of clips. Let's listen to this one on deportation. She was asked, well, okay, you said you're going to go after criminal aliens, but you're getting a lot of these people that aren't violent criminals. Cut 2.
The president has said countless times on the campaign trail, I've been with him at the rallies, I know you've been there covering them too, Peter, that he is focused on launching the largest mass deportation operation in American history of illegal criminals. And if you are an individual, a foreign national, who illegally enters the United States of America, you are, by definition, a criminal.
Every one of them is a criminal.
She's not wrong.
No, she's not wrong.
And to our earlier point, President Trump said he was going to do this.
Yep.
So he's doing it.
Yep.
And in the press conference, she did, either before or after, she did emphasize that we're going to start first with those that have committed violent crimes. Heinous crimes is the word she used. And then she went furthermore to say, but everyone else that have come here legally, that's not off the table either. We're gonna revisit that.
Yeah.
But first, we're going to start with.
It was interesting that the border czar Tom Homan was asked a while back. He says, are you going to round up just regular people? He said, well, listen, if there's a sanctuary state, we'd like to go to the prison and grab them and help, ICE detainer and everything. But if you're going to deny us that, they're going to get back out in the community. We're going to go to find them in the community. And if they happen to be with family members or other people that are not documented, that haven't committed a heinous crime, those are going to.
Yeah.
So this is another thing that she said that actually causes a whole lot more questions in my mind than answers, and it's not Carolyn's fault at all. But you remember all those drones that were going over New Jersey, and everybody was wondering if it's a Chinese drone or the aliens or what they are? Well, Carolyn Levitt was asked, and she had an answer. Cut 3.
After research and study, the drones that were flying over New Jersey in large numbers were authorized to be flown by the FAA for research and various other reasons. Many of these drones were also hobbyists, recreational, and private individuals that enjoy flying drones. In time, it got worse due to curiosity. This was not the enemy.
Don't you think in the month that everybody was freaking out about that, somebody could have said that?
That would have been helpful.
They could have.
I know.
So, my question would be, why wouldn't the Biden administration tell everybody?
Would that take her 15 seconds? 30 seconds?
Yes.
19, actually.
Yeah. So my belief is that the Biden administration was staffed by people who despise ordinary citizens and wanted to keep everybody nervous. You don't know if we're spying on you. You don't even know if it's the enemy. You don't even know if it's aliens from another planet.
It just baffles me as why they couldn't say anything about that. There was such a mystery.
Or do you think they even took the time to look into it?
Listen, with the way things were there with the Biden White House, especially the last couple of years, but it was there before then. You didn't know who was in control.
Right.
I don't know. That would make a great movie or book if because Karine Jean-Pierre and before her. What was her name? Jen Psaki. They were just spokespersons to go out and talk to the press and give non-answers.
Right.
Or just lie through their teeth.
right?
Whichever one they wanted to do. Because Biden wouldn't talk. He wouldn't talk very much at all because he couldn't.
Wouldn't do interviews.
Wouldn't do interviews. They wouldn't let him do interviews for the obvious reasons we know now. And everybody was curious. Everybody, why didn't he do an interviews? Okay, what I'm saying is, if you were to ask any of the four of us, and you were to say, okay, who's his chief of staff? Because that's who's calling the shots.
Yeah. Right.
You know what? I don't. Can you name him, Wesley?
No.
Can you name it?
Was it Ron Klain?
Yeah, it was Ron Klain.
Okay, two of the four of us knew. Now, where's he today?
Well, he's out of a
He's
job.
working at McDonald's.
I think so.
He's working at McDonald's, probably passing out vaccines.
Like candy.
Like candy. So my point is, that's probably who was running the show at the White House. We know now, with this new White House, it's Trump, it's Vance, it's Stephen Miller, and this young lady, again, her name?
Carolyn Levitt.
She
Carolyn with a K.
at least her first day on the job, she had the answers to the questions, and she had a packed room of reporters. I saw the picture. You couldn't get any more reporters, and the reporters were from around. They were international as well as domestic, and they included some podcasters and things.
Yeah, she's got two seats on the side of the briefing room that usually were the staff. Her staff sat there, I guess, to help if she needed help on anything. But she freed up two of those, and she's bringing in podcasters, the non-traditional media people that you wouldn't think of. Anybody that presents news in any kind of form is welcome to apply for a credential.
Why don't you see if you can get you a credential up there, Steve?
I will.
She gave the website live on TV to go fill out.
You got to send me to Washington to ask a question if I get approved.
Well, if you can get in, we will.
Okay, I'll do that.
See if you can do that.
I will.
All right, you're listening. You are listening, folks, to Today's Issues. That's the name of this show on the American Family Radio Network. I'm Tim with Ed, Wesley, and Steve. Next story, Steve.
All right. I wanted to play. You wondered what Ron Klain was doing. Well, I wondered what Tim Walz, the vice presidential candidate with Kamala Harris, was doing, and he's not doing well. He's
struggling.
He is struggling. He's doing deep soul searching.
Yeah.
I wanted you to hear a little bit from him. He was on MSNBC, and this is what he had to say. Cut 10.
They're throwing so much at us that we're fatigued. We spent 3 days, having them trying to debate that President Musk gave a Nazi salute. Of course he did. But that is a distraction from what I think you said it. This is game on stuff right here. And I am worried with these federal employees because, they're in a tough spot. That some of these folks, especially those that are doing good work around environmental concerns, around justice for people, around, criminal justice reform, all of the things that make our society better, those folks are in there. And they're making, they put out tweets from the president's fail son who threatens people, like, we're coming for you. You think this is bad or whatever.
That was from an interview on Rachel Maddow, wasn't it? This is MSNBC's headline for their story that deals with this interview. It says, exclusive, Rachel Maddow interviews Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as Trump plots the end of the U.S. government.
That's MSNBC.
That's MSNBC.
Right? So I love a couple of things. He called it President Musk, if you notice that. And he believes that was a Nazi salute. Obviously it wasn't if you saw the context, but that doesn't matter to him. And I love the fact that he's worried about federal workers who are doing good things like climate justice and working for criminal justice reform. I want to tell you how the Democrats' criminal justice reform works. And I'm going to take you to New Jersey. The New Jersey State Police were facing some accusations of racial profiling. It turns out that they were going pulling over more black drivers than they were white drivers, it was said. So they said, we can't do this anymore. The Attorney General's Office of Public Integrity and Accountability looked at stops between 2009 and 21. They were told by union leaders that every stop they made would go into the microscope now. So what happened? They made fewer stops. Well, traffic accidents, including fatal accidents, went up 18% because they weren't stopping the bad drivers. And now there's a special counsel investigating whether they're doing their job or not. You can't
because accidents are going up.
Because accidents are going up.
Well, what you're saying is, if you're was it state troopers?
New Jersey State Police.
If you're a state trooper in New Jersey, I win, heads I win, tails you lose.
Exactly.
There's no win situation for them. They were pulling over. They thought were bad drivers.
Yeah.
And maybe because of the area of the city or something like that, most of a larger percentage were black drivers. So they were told, you're doing it for racist reasons. Stop doing it. So because they were nervous about pulling over black drivers, they stopped pulling over as many bad drivers, period, and accidents went up. I'm shocked.
I know, right? Who could have guessed? So
that's the justice, the criminal justice that Governor Tim Walz was concerned about.
There's workers that are doing that job of holding their feet to the fire. A lot of the police departments under President Obama had what they call consent decrees that the federal government foisted and made these police departments take, which is federal oversight in order to make sure that these departments aren't racist or it's basically federal DEI to police departments. And it just, the amount of policing, the amount of forms and paperwork that they had to fill out was just ridiculous. Then there was the Ferguson effect, where they stopped, they weren't going into neighborhoods to do community policing because they were afraid if they got into an altercation, they'd be blamed.
Right.
It was just ridiculous. The defund the police movement, I think all that's going to change.
There was so much pressure over the last 10 years on police departments. And if you were one of these communities, these cities, well, a lot of them were run by Democrats anyway.
Yeah.
But if you're in these cities and you don't want to cooperate with this federal government program, then the accusation is, well, that's because you're racist.
I know. Yeah, it's, again, heads you lose, tails I win. So, yeah.
So where is that now? Is it changing, or is that, or are you just reporting where it is currently?
That is, I think.
Because the reason I ask is we are seeing a shift away from the Summer of Love 2020 hatred for cops.
Yeah, I think you can. It doesn't say here, but I think you could look forward to that being dropped.
Yeah.
We
Just go back to doing your job.
Yeah.
Yeah. We got any more clips?
I got one more
from.
From Carolyn.
Oh, you know her first name?
Yeah, we're buds.
Caroline, is it Caroline or Caroline?
I think it's Carolyn is the way I've heard it. Carolyn Levitt.
Well, it depends on if you're in Mississippi or if you're in
wherever you live. How you pronounce it? It starts with a K.
Yes,
it's rare that you see Caroline and Carolyn.
And what song do you want to
Sweet.
sing? Yeah.
Sweet.
That's right. Even Wesley knows it.
Bum, bum, bum. Don't get me started. I'll sing the whole song.
That's a great song.
So good. So good. So good.
I wonder if anybody's going to do that.
She's doing so good.
Yeah, that's
Caroline,
true.
you're doing so good.
Right.
So good. So good.
She spells her name Karoline, Levitt. So she pronounces it Caroline.
Carolyn. I've heard Carolyn Levitt, but
Okay. Well,
that's what I've heard people.
Okay,
call
you got any more clips from her first press conference?
Yeah, we can do that.
She went 47 minutes, by the way.
Oh yeah,
she's rocking a cross there on her.
Yes.
So I don't know if she's a white Christian nationalist. and what
she, you know the answer to
and
that.
what she's trying to signal.
I don't know. Is there a group called Proud Girls?
That may be. So anyway, I'm sure the left wing media will make something of her cross she's wearing.
Well, and I think she's Catholic, so that's two strikes against her. If you're talking about the secular left,
yeah,
they absolutely despise all Christians, especially if you're Catholic. I don't know if she goes to a conservative Latin mass. That's 3 strikes.
I know, right? I don't either.
I wouldn't be able to understand it.
So one of the things that the press was kind of asking her over and over, you know that the Trump administration put a pause on all federal funding and donations, or not donations, but loans and such. They're going to put a pause on funding everything until they can find out whether or not the money's being spent wisely. Doge can take a look at it. So she was asked about that. What about these people that are on food stamps that are going to starve? This was her answer, cut 4.
I'm not naming everything that's included, but just to give you a few examples, Social Security benefits, Medicare benefits, food stamps, welfare benefits, assistance that is going directly to individuals will not be impacted by this pause. And if you are receiving individual assistance from the federal government, you will still continue to receive that. However, it is the responsibility of this president and this administration to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars.
Hey.
Couldn't agree with that more. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just not sure. I'm not complaining. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I just don't know. Is that legal? Can the president just?
She answered that.
Well, I'm not talking about like the individual.
Well, we'll find out soon because it's going to court.
A lot of these are going to be going to court.
Yeah.
And there was I saw some writing that said the president thinks it's legal, so he's doing it.
Listen, I understand the question because what if? I mean, does a president have the unilateral authority to stop Social Security?
He's not stopping Social.
No.
Okay.
I'm giving you a
hypothetical.
A hypothetical.
Okay.
Now, some of the ones she listed, most people don't care, right? It doesn't affect them. But I'm just asking you: are there federal money dole-outs that happen on a monthly basis that a president could suspend by himself?
Yeah, and
well, I think.
Do you know the answer to that question?
Well, based on her response, there are some. There's some no and some yes, and they've taken the ones that need to be reevaluated. Like we mentioned two this morning. One's probably not most appropriate for radio with what they're doing with Gaza, but
birth control. Yeah.
But there's some other ones that and the thing is, she didn't say permanently. She said until we're able to reevaluate where the money's going.
I don't listen. Yeah, I just don't know.
Well, who else? Who would you think has the authority?
You're for a dictatorship, aren't you, Wesley? That's what I'm hearing. That's what I'm hearing. You don't really care.
I care about where our tax dollars go.
What if the Trump administration decides that 40% of federal money is not being spent wisely? Can they bottle that up indefinitely? That's my question.
Well, okay, I'm going to answer this just as a layman. I'm not a constitutional expert. Some people call me that, but I don't. But listen, I don't call myself that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. You're humble.
I think that's what I should try to be.
Right.
I should aspire to be humble. I would just say this. There's probably President Trump would argue, and people that the executive in charge of the federal government, namely the President of the United States, who has the ability to hire and fire people who fall under the executive branch of the federal government, that he does have the authority if he wanted to. Now, he wouldn't do it to suspend Social Security.
Well, and
that's the issue said in this clip, by the way. Everything he listed are
but he wouldn't do it because it'd be crazy politically. He'd be impeached within a week if they really did that.
The question, we've raised this many times, the conjoining of the legislative and the executive branches with these alphabet departments, okay, that have been created by Congress to
control by Democrats,
to control the money that goes out through various programs. Those agencies are also under the control of the executive branch. So the question then becomes:
Congress appropriates the money. They say how much you can get, and then the executive branch decides how to spend that money. It's like when my wife.
No, they don't decide how to spend it. They execute the law.
Well,
passed.
They have a lot of. It's like when my wife gives me $50 out of the checking account, says, "Go ahead and spend it."
Yeah.
I can spend on anything I want, but she has to give me the money.
Right. So that's going to become the question: is these the FDA? Money's allocated by Congress, but the FDA is under the executive branch, and the president is
all I hear is that we're stopping and we're going to evaluate where we're spending our tax dollars.
Yeah,
which I'm fine with.
Is that what Elon Musk is over?
Doge.
Yes.
Is that what this is?
Yes. He's going to be part of the review process.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, I want to thank everybody for listening to the program today. Thanks, Steve, Ed, Wesley, Brent, who else? Fred.
Abraham, Neil Mammen.
Yeah, all those people. Thanks for joining us today, and keep listening to American Family Radio.
Maybe you can relate to this. A lot of people can. They feel like their health care costs are just out of control. And if you're 65,